Bolagade raised his voice louder to the crowd in front of him. More than half of them had been paid to attend the campaign. After all, what kind of politician doesn't have an entourage when he campaigns? We have to change. Change so we can change our life for the better. Change so our children will not go hungry. Change so the future of our children can be bright. He said as he fisted his hands and raised it up. Any politician worth his salt must have a tagline. And what better way to draw people in than with the promise of change, since the country's economy was going to hell? The camera zoomed into his face and flashes went off as his fist went up. And with that, the campaign was over. Bolagade, like any novice politician, thought all he needed was money to win an election, and he wasn't wrong, since he got the position by paying his way into a small party, and to his credit, the man was charismatic. When he spoke, people listened. But he was quickly learning that yes, money can buy power, but it depends on how much money you have. His opponent was a sitting governor, so he knew he wouldn't win. But this was the perfect time for him to have people know who he was, and the media was doing a good job of this. They would put out stories with titles such as David versus Goliath, him being David and his opponent being Goliath. People would praise him here and there for the great work he was doing. His talk about change made people look at him twice. The opponent party reached out to Bolagade. They had asked him for a sit down, but as a calculating man he was, he knew what they wanted from him. They wanted to merge parties. He also knew they would offer him a meager position for his followers. He had his eyes set on a much higher position, so he was going to milk the best out of this campaign until his spies can tell him that what he wanted was going to be given to him. His assistant came to him to tell him his next activity on the list for the day. It was to visit an orphanage. Balagade had always hated orphanages. He grew up in one. Not knowing where you come from or not knowing who your parents are were the worst feelings in the world. People would come in every weekend with food and toys, and of course, not without taking pictures. He knew at an early age that people were two faced. In fact, he expected it. Only a few people came willing without no cameras, and even they did it for a reason or two. Either forgot to bless them or something like that. They were treated as an emotional doll. When someone gifted them something, they were expected to smile, jump up and down, and be eternally grateful. And sometimes the children were expected to be pastors, praying to whatever goodies the person brought, so God could grant them their heart desires. The only thing that made Bolagade happy on the weekend growing up in an orphanage was the fact that they would bathe with soap and they were sure to be fed because most of the patrons wanted to see them eat what they brought. Who knew that he would one day also be one of the pretenders who showed fake love to orphans to get the support of the people? Oh well, such is life, he thought, as he smiled for the camera, surrounded by orphans smiling from ear to ear. The day before the election, Bolagade's opponents were getting desperate. They finally had an offer, a position Bolagade wanted. He knew he wouldn't be given better than this. They had offered him the position of a commissioner. They shook hands in front of the press as they came to an agreement to merge their parties. And so his opponent was victorious in the election. The governor kept his end of the deal and nominated Bolagade to be a commissioner. But the ministry he was given had little to no power or money value. It was a power move by his opponent to make sure that Bolagade didn't get to pocket money from the ministry or the government. But, like I said, Bola was a calculating man. He knew that this was going to be the outcome. After all, he wasn't born yesterday. So Bolagade did everything a man in his position could do. He gave money to widows, he constructed new roads and fixed bad ones, he sponsored children from low income homes to school, and he did all this and more in front of the world. This was so he could put his name in front of everyone and keep his name on everyone's lips for as long as possible. As hypocritical as people can be, they love when a man shows off what he has, and I love a man who is as humble as Jesus Christ. He put so many of his followers on a monthly allowance which made them spread his name all over town. His opponent didn't understand how this man had so much money. They knew he was wealthy, although no one really knew the source of his wealth. Some said it was oil, some said it was import and export. During the election, they had planted spies beside him to know the dubious source of his wealth, but to their dismay, the spies had no information to give. And so that was the end of the chapter, or so they thought. Abdul was irritated on his very first day at work. Normally, he would be in heaven or high, whatever you want to call it. He and alcohol were 5 and 6, inseparable. But today, his wife decided to be oversmart and confiscated his wallet and only left him enough money for transportation to his job. The local woman selling alcohol had refused to give him any more since he still owed her for last time. So here he was, guarding the so called secretariat offices with nothing to keep him warm. So he decided to sleep off. There was nothing to really protect. The buildings were old. It wasn't as if the building would stand up and walk away. Abdul woke up to pee in the middle of the night. As he stood, his eyes caught something. He dismissed it, thinking it was a rat. But then, another movement, and he saw it clearly. It was a snake, although the snake looked a little too fat. And then he saw something else. Something was in the mouth of the snake, but he couldn't really see clearly. It was far away. And he thought to himself, it must have just had dinner. Then, as if caught doing something wrong, the snake began to slither away. The snake looked fat, Abdul thought again. Green snakes usually did not look that big. He put the scene out of his mind and hurried to pee. As Bolagade slithered into his warehouse, he changed out of the appearance of the snake. He knew he had nothing to fear with the guard seeing him. After all, the animal he chose to disguise into was common in Nigeria. As he looked around his warehouse, no one would even believe the guard even if he said anything to them. He remembered this one time when he was a civil servant and he had just found out about how the government would put dirty old bills in the offices inside Ghana must go bags and would only bring out money from it if someone in a high position needed the money. He found out by sheer coincidence that a lot of money was kept in plain sight and no one knew the exact amount while stealing from his boss's secret stash. He had turned into a monkey, thinking that he could swing from roof to roof without being seen, and he had done it as many times as possible. But this day was different. When he encountered the security man, who had decided to be awake instead of asleep, he obviously thought it was strange for a monkey to be around, and also for it to be carrying bags. But to his good fortune, the security guard wasn't taken seriously. In fact, when the security guard gathered the press, he said to them, I saw a monkey carrying bags of money, carrying bags of money. It was a monkey. They laughed at him. And when this news spread wide and far in Nigeria, everyone also laughed at him. Even in Nigeria, the idea of a monkey stealing bags of money was laughable, not to talk about a snake stealing bags of money. The police didn't do any investigation because the politician who owned the money couldn't reveal it to the public. After all, it was stolen money. Bolagade sat in his warehouse, surrounded by his stolen money. Not exactly how he would describe it, because you can't steal stolen money, he said to himself so many times, and thought to himself, no one would ever find out about this. His future as the next governor, and perhaps president, was looking good, he thought to himself. My people used to say, there is nothing hidden under the sun. So here is my question, everyone. Do you think Bolagade would get away with this, or will he eventually be caught? The end. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video.